نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه على سيدنا مولانا محمد مبارك صلوا عليه صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Today is the 14th of Dhul Hajj, and of course next month is Muharram, and as we've mentioned many times before, there is that connection between one month and the next, between the events of one month and the next, and so of course in the month of Dhul Hajj we remember the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the reality of that sacrifice is pointing us towards the sacrifice of Imam Husain alayhi salam in Karbala. And in order to understand the situation that we're in today, we need to understand our past, and we need to understand the examples that were set by those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent as examples for us to follow. And of course, high on that list are Ahlul Bayt, and those that are undeniable as far as that Ahlul Bayt is concerned, Imam Husain alayhi salam is amongst them. One time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after leading Fajr Salat, he stood up on the minbar and he told the people about the trials and tribulations to come. And he named names. Anyone who would have any significant following, he named them and their father. And he kept going until Dhuhr. And then they made Dhuhr Salat, and he got back on the minbar and he continued until Asr. And in some narrations after Asr he continued until Maghrib. And the companions, they said, whoever remembered, remembered, and whoever forgot, forgot. And so this is why whenever anything would come up, they would always say, Rasulullah told us about this. This is what he told us. They were not in the habit of simply narrating narrations, at least not until later on. In fact, later on, Abu Huraira radiyallahu was asked, because he would be narrating the narrations of Rasulullah. So he said, if you had done this during the time of Umar, what would have happened? And he said, I would have been whipped. Because they had a strict criteria of don't narrate anything unless it's pertinent. This is also why after Imam Husain al-Islam, when Yazid sends the army against Medina Munawwara, 100,000 man army led by Muslim bin Uqba, or rather Kafir bin Uqba, leading this army against the people of Medina Munawwara. So when this army arrives, the people, they came running to the wife of Rasulullah, the mother of the believers, Bibi Salma radiallahu anha, and asked her, is this that army? Meaning the army that Rasulullah had talked about that would come against Imam Mahdi. The army that would be under 80 flags and 12,000 troops under each flag, meaning a 960,000 man army. She said, they asked her, is this that army? And she said, no, this is not that army. Because again, Rasulullah already told them things that would be happening. And he didn't leave out anything. But again, whoever remembered, remembered, and whoever forgot, forgot. But if we look at all of the trials and tribulations that have come and gone, and the ones that are here today, and the ones that are coming, again, Rasulullah has told us, but he's also told us a simple formula. That the Quran and Ahlul Bayt will never be separated. And so these are our guides. He says, I'm leaving two very heavy things behind. The Book of Allah and Itrat Ahl Bayti. You know, most people will tell you the Book of Allah and the Sunnah, which is the weak hadith. The hadith which is in Sahih Muslim is Itrat Ahl Bayti, the Ahlul Bayt. The true Ahlul Bayt. So we will be talking about Imam Husain al-Islam and as he relates to all of these fitnas that we're dealing with, and why knowing him and understanding what he did and why he did it serves as a protection for us. And the reason that we are in the turmoil that we are is because we don't know him. Unfortunately, we don't know much of anything anymore. But I want to preface things with the hadith which is in Sunan Abu Dawud. And according to most scholars, the hadith is sahih. You know, it's authentic, its chain is solid, its content is solid. And so the narrator, Yahya bin Uthman, he says that he heard Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu telling the people that once they were sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was telling them about the tribulations to come in extensive detail, until he arrived to the tribulation or the fitna of Ahlas. And I'm going to go through the whole narration first, and then we'll come back, and this will probably go on into the next few weeks. So it says he mentioned the fitna of Ahlas, and one of the companions, he asked, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what is the fitna of Ahlas? And he said, fleeing and fighting. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam continues, he says, and then will come the fitna of Sarra. The smoke of which will arise from underneath the feet of someone from my household, meaning Ahlul Bayt, and the wording in Arabic is Ahlul Bayt, who will claim to be of me but will not be of me. For my friends are those who have taqwa. And then the people will rally around a man with iron on his side. And then the fitna of ad-duhayma, which will not leave a single person from this ummah except it will hit him with a slap. And when the people will think that is ended, it will continue. It will be prolonged. And a man will wake up in the morning with belief and will become a disbeliever by the evening. Until the people will be separated into two groups. Those with belief, with no hypocrisy therein, and those with hypocrisy and no belief therein. And when this happens, then await the Dajjal that day or the next. So again, these three fitnas that he mentions, Ahlas, Sarra, and Duhayma, these are the last three fitnas just before Dajjal. The last three tribulations just before Dajjal. And if I look at this historically, and again, if you remember the beginning of the narration, Abdullah ibn Umar, he says that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned all these others in detail, extensively, until he came to these. So these are the last. Many others have passed before. So, in order to kind of put context into this as far as time frame, when you look at that second mention of Sarra, where he says that the smoke will arise from underneath the feet of a man from my household who will claim to be of me but will not be of me. And if you look at this historically, because this narrows it down as to who this could be. The only one who really fits historically is Sharif Hussein, who was the governor of Makkah during the time of the Ottomans. He is the one who led the Arab revolt against the Ottomans, because they had given him £1 million back then. He had teamed up with Lawrence of Arabia, and he claimed to be from the household of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But when you look, there are two things here. When Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that he will claim to be from me, but he will not be of me. So this could mean a couple of things. One is that his claim is a lie to begin with. Because, when you look at history, like when the British came to the subcontinent, many people that were not Sayyid became Sayyid. Famous amongst them is Nazir Hussain Delwi. Before the British came, he was Maulvi Nazir Hussain Delwi. And then when the British came, he became Sayyid Nazir Hussain Delwi. And not only that, he became Ustad-e-Kul, the teacher of all. He is the one who formed Jamiat al-Hadith in the subcontinent. But if you look at his history, everyone who associated with him who was against the British ended up in jail. He never ended up in jail. In fact, he wrote an ode or a long poem honoring Queen Victoria on her Jubilee. And if you look at the wording of that poem, and you can look it up on the internet, it's interesting because the words he uses for Queen Victoria, if I use those same words, if anyone uses those same words for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, all of these people who claim to be his followers will jump up and say, shirk, this is shirk. All those, the Wahhabis and the Al-Hadith, this is shirk. And yet he uses those words for Queen Victoria. Yeah. And he's a great scholar for them. So either that, or his mother wasn't loyal to her father. That's another way that he may not be. Or like the son of Nuh alayhi salam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Nuh alayhi salam, he's not your son because he is not with you. Like even today, many people who say, we're Sayyid, but then they want to defend Yazid. What type of Sayyid are you? You're going to defend the ones who murdered and massacred your forefathers, and you still claim to be from them. That doesn't work that way. So here Rasulullah says outright, he claims to be of me, but he is not of me. For Imam Husain al-Islam, what did he say? Al-Husainu minni wa ana min al-Husain. Husain is from me and I am from Husain. The other thing is, as I said, like the son of Nuh al-Islam. If someone claiming to be Sayyid disbelieves, then that claim no longer is valid. Kufr takes him out of Ahlul Bayt. And that should not be very difficult to understand. And so if I look at the actions of Sharif Hussain, he is siding with the British, with the enemies of Allah and His Messenger. And of course we know throughout the Quran, end of last verse of Surah Mujadila, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? That you will never find a people who believe in Allah and the last day befriending the enemies of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even if their forefathers, if their fathers, their sons, their brothers or their kin, doesn't matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in the Quran, He mentions when he talks about do not befriend the Christians and the Jews because they are friends to each other, and whoever does so is amongst them, is from them. So Sharif Hussain sides with the British, schemes with the British, Lawrence of Arabia and all of these guys, because they give him £1 million and promise to make him the Khalifa of the Arabs. The Arab Caliphate. His two sons, Faisal and Abdullah, they're also, so this is 1916. I mean, he's been planning this for a long time. 1916 is when the revolt takes place. Continued on until 1918, until finally he takes over the Hijaz. And then in 1924, the British give Abdulaziz ibn Saud the green light to attack the Hijaz, and they give it all to him. So Hussein comes to the British and he says, well, what about the promise you made me? They said, okay, we'll give your son something. So they make one of his sons Faisal the king of Iraq, and the other son Abdullah the king of Transjordan. The current kings of Jordan, same lineage. This is why when they betray the Muslims, it's not surprising. This is their blood. This is who they are. Faisal eventually, his son becomes king, and then they're killed, and then you have a dictatorship and that whole history. The Jordanian guys are still claiming to be, the Hashemite kingdom. That's their claim. Again, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about their father, he is not of me. But again, he's the only one. I mean, he may not be, but historically, when you look at it, he's the only one who fits. Because his actions changed the course of the Muslim world. It was the final nail in the coffin of the Ottomans. And it allowed the British and the French to break up and to control Muslim land. And it gave Masjid al-Aqsa directly into the hands of the enemies of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said that after this would come ad-darra. The sarra was this one, where the smoke underneath the person who claims to be from the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then immediately after that is Dohima, which is what we're in now, which is that era where every time you feel like, oh, things are getting better, something else comes up. I mean, you think about this, the last several decades now. You look throughout the Muslim world, you look throughout the world in general. Every time you think there's a pause, that there's going to be peace, some type of lasting peace, where people can prosper, something comes up. Something happens out of the blue, which is not out of the blue, it's all planning, and everything is set back. So every time you think, oh, it's ending, it gets prolonged. And it used to be, like initially it was like maybe every 5-6 years. And now they don't even wait 5-6 years. Every few months. And not even every few months. Everything's right around the corner now. It used to be, okay, you could at least maybe take a little bit of a breath before the next issue came up. And now you haven't even finished the first breath before the next one starts. And this is what we're seeing. And nothing but chaos and destruction amongst the Muslim lands. And this is where it's so important to understand. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there will be two major groups. And the big thing here is that the situation will be such that a man will wake up a believer, and by the afternoon or evening, he's a disbeliever. People will lose their iman. In a matter of moments. And we see that happening in front of us now. Iman is something, and here it doesn't have to be, because of the next statement, it doesn't have to be that person has left Islam and knows that now, okay, I'm not, I'm either this or that other than Islam. But here the person, he says, Rasulullah says that there will be two major groups. The one with belief and no hypocrisy, and the one with hypocrisy and no belief. So here the hypocrite, he thinks he believes. But the reality is he has no belief. His belief is a matter of convenience. And again, we're seeing that today. So many things are just prime examples of that. Recent things. Not even, just a few days ago. Just a matter of convenience. Islam, religion is a matter of convenience. When it suits me, when it serves me, then I talk the religion. But when I have to serve it, then I come up with some other justification. And again, exactly as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam described. This is what we're seeing right in front of us. And when that furqan or that criteria or that break, when that line becomes very distinct, the two groups are complete, that's when Dajjal will show himself. And the rate that things are going, things aren't very far. But all I've done right now is just mention the problems. The question is, what is the solution? How do we safeguard ourselves? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't tell us these things just to be telling us these things. He told us these things so that we would know to protect ourselves from them. He also told us how to protect ourselves from them. This is why he said, I am leaving two heavy things behind. Two very heavy things behind, and if you stick to them, you will never be astray. The Book of Allah and Itrati Ahl Bayti, the household. That household that he said is from him. Not that house, those who claim the household, who he said they have nothing to do with me. So this is why it's so important, because that household is Quran and Natiq. They are the walking, talking, living Quran. They are the explanation to that Quran. And he himself said that they will never be separated. So in order to understand the Quran, we have to know them. Otherwise, there is no understanding of the Quran. And this is why it's so important to understand the actions of Imam Husain al-Islam and how they relate to us today. And this is what I was mentioning to the brother earlier. He said, unfortunately, people today, they don't understand ishara. They don't understand a hint. People in the past, you could give a slight hint and they understood exactly what you meant. This is why true great poets, they could, write lines of poetry, and within a few lines, people knew all this stuff. You look at the nature of the Quran. The Quran is not a huge book. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He gives ishara. He gives you a glance at something and then He moves on. Basically, He gives you the dots. But if we choose not to connect the dots, then again, that's our issue. So, time is ending. I thought I'd get a lot further than this today. But the next couple of weeks, we will talk about Imam Husain al-Islam in relation to this hadith. In relation to this hadith, and then how that relates to us, because we are living in that fitna. How do we protect ourselves from that fitna? And how do we understand the lives of Ahlul Bayt as they connect to the Quran? And so all of this, and this is also part of what we've been talking about separately, but for the next few weeks we'll go over this, and then, of course, Muharram is coming. So inshallah, next month some point, haven't finalized the final date, we'll have a program in honor of Imam Husain al-Islam and the martyrs of Karbala. Because the step he took, we talk about it like it's just history. It's just a story. We have no connection to it, unfortunately. Or rather, we don't connect ourselves to it. Sacrificing your family, your own life, sacrificing literally everything. Not for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the ummah. And this is what he did. But we still choose to ignore him, not to know him. And then we want to complain when we have all of the problems that we have. But the big thing about this fitna that Rasulullah mentions that we're in, no one will be safe from it. Everyone will be affected. At one level or another. Everyone. And that fitna will be so great that again, and we're again living in it, we're seeing it, that the person wakes up with Iman and he goes to sleep without Iman. And every time we think, there's relief, something else will come up. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. And the only protection from all of this is to really attain His true love, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the love of Rasulullah, the love of Ahlul Bayt, and the love of the Sahaba. That is the only protection from this. And may He grant us this. And may He protect our brothers and sisters in Gaza that are being oppressed over their oppressors. Those who have not made sunnah, go and make sunnah.